start.
It takes a little while.
To YouTube.
All right, this is David D. Hilster. I want to talk today about something I think a lot about, ether, even though I'm not an etherist. I actually abandoned it, but I want to talk about something that sort of bothered me for many years, and this is this phrase I hear over and over and over and over, hundreds of times a year at least. I read it everywhere, and this is the idea that science went wrong when ether was abandoned. And there was something I didn't like about that. So I'm going to talk to you about today. And that's what I said just now. It's been repeated for hundreds of years. The biggest problem in science is when we abandon ether. The statement is disingenuous because there are models other than ether models. So the reason I care about these things is because I'm on the forefront, at least I try to be, on getting new people to our group, new critical thinkers, people who don't know about ether, that it even exists. And so when they know about my particle model, maybe because I talk about it on my own YouTube channel, I have 157 videos, they hear about it. But oftentimes they go, well, what's this abandoned ether? What does that mean? And historically, of course, it means that people left it behind because they were thinking about ether, and Einstein maybe came along and said, we don't need it, whatever. But it's been repeated over and over and over, and we have to understand that I think that's a very bad phrase. We got to get rid of it. Okay? I tried to think to myself, why is it that so many people are attracted to the model of ether? And we are extremely visual beings. What does visual mean? We're observing light. And we look at light, and scientists are going to wonder what that is. So that's one of the things, is we're just visual beings. Light looks mostly and acts like a wave to us. It must be a wave in something, is the idea, and ether seems completely intuitive. And the truth of the matter is, I think about it more and more. I'm starting to think about it less and less, but I still think about it probably daily. This bias of we wanting an ether is so strong that I myself, who has a totally different model with my father, I'm also constantly allowing myself to try to make an ether theory work. And there's also a problem with that. And that is, why are we taking 400 years to do ether right? Why, with all the brilliant minds in the world, are we still trying to solve this problem? We continuously claim to have solved them. But I ask etherists, and you'll see it today, I won't get ahead of myself, but we have not done so satisfactorily. Even today, top etherists are trying to solve its problems. Do I have examples of that? Well, first of all, let's talk about ether problems. We have to deal with transverse waves, dispersion, refraction. Gravity always seems to be an add-on. I don't hear ether says, I got this great model for the universe, and here's how it explains gravity and light. You don't hear that. Everyone starts from light. Light, 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 light. Oh, and by the way, here's how I fit gravity into it. Now, if you just look at that as from the outside, and you're judging people about the way their model is that going to be better or worse than a model that says, oh, here's our model, and this is how light and gravity they go together? It's not something that comes naturally from a model. And of course, you have the problem of lasers. How do you shoot a straight stream of something through an ether and it stays in a beam? I ask people this, and my answers I get from etherists are a lot of hand waving and talking about something, I don't know what else. So let's take a person who I think is one of the great scientists of our organization because of his work with infinity and neomechanics, Borchardt, and he is an etherist. And like I said, I admire his work immensely. In fact, our model, the particle model, is inspired and is based on infinite. That's why you hear G1, G2, G3, G4, G5. If you don't know anything about Borchardt, he has an Aether model that has A1, A2, A3, A4, because gets infinitely small. That is, it's infinitely down. Everything below it has something smaller. There are no partless parts. So he's been trying to solve it. So here's a guy who I consider to be one of the brilliant minds in our group. I praise him up and down. I quote him in our book. He is one of the most important people that got us to where we needed to get with our model. And he's trying to solve the Aether problem. 2017. He came to me and said, okay, the Aether particles are going to be shaped like galaxies because then we can get transverse waves. Okay? When were the first Aether theories thought of? This isn't his continuation of his work from 2000, and Aether just appeared then. Again, this is hundreds of years. Needed to try and explain refraction and dispersion. Okay, other models don't need transverse waves. Our particle model doesn't need them. Doesn't need charge. I'm not here to say our model's better. I'm just saying there are other models. Let's look at something else. Again, Glenn Borchardt. 2018, that's this year. Just sent out some information. I like to read everything about everybody's stuff. People don't believe me, but I think it was Duncan said, hey, did you read my, and I told him, yeah, I've named it the Vancouver style of Aether. It's because it goes up and it comes back down. It's like, you were inspired by that. I even named it for you. And he was like, wow. And so I do look at it. I don't know why I do that, but I like, when somebody says they got a new model, we found one the other day, right, Dad, the particle model. And it said particle model, and it's a whole website. Never saw it before. So I'm like, oh, wow, maybe someone's discovered what we have. Went there, and it wasn't the same. But I look at it. We look at it. So, the physical cause of gravitation. That was the name of this paper by Glenn Borchardt on June 20th, 2018 at 4 a.m. You can see a couple of things that are very important. It's very new, and it was way at 4 a.m. in the morning. Maybe because it was I'm on East Coast time. And there is a link to that. It says that gravity is caused by entrained and lethargic ether. I don't get it. I don't get why we're still trying this. And I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay? These are my impressions, obviously. Other viable models. We have lattice models, actually, a dissident model, particle model. Particle model. Just to give you an idea of what, because I know it, okay? I'm not here to tell you, or I know no one's going to jump on our train. Dad and I are going to do like Alexander Untitled says, and I agree, and I think everyone should pay attention and do this. Work like hell on your own work. Don't worry about what other people think. So what do we do? Direct solution to the wave-particle duality. Our particle model does not have a photon. How can that be? Again, I'm not here to talk about that specifically. We need no need for transverse waves. Why are we solving it if it's no need for it? Gravity is a natural part of the system. That wasn't something, in fact, I think it was sort of like putting the two together that came up with this, my dad's, in my opinion, I've never seen a particle wave duality solution yet that I went nuts when I saw that. Lasers are easily explained. They're waves of particles and waves. Think of it as this. Light in our model are like bombers. They come in waves. So they do not hit each other. The wave comes at you. Turn on your shower, that's gravity. Turn on your shower massage, and that's light. That's the idea. So there's no collisions, there's no kinetic or elasticity needed. So it is not an ether model. The Hilsters abandon ether. I've been around Aether since 1992, 93. I've been at the MPA since 96. I've heard lots of brilliant people talk about Aether. I have seen and read about every Aether model under the sun, and I never grabbed a hold of it. There was nothing to go to, so I was sort of like everybody else. Well, here it is, until, of course, my dad had this insight for the wave particle duality. So in a sense, I abandoned Aether for something else because I think it's got fatal problems. So the conclusion to my short talk, because I know this is just more informational for people. My whole goal is to get as many people toward this group and see the great critical thinking that's going on and all the great models. I know it's hard maybe for you to believe, but I love the models that I see. I'll tell you one that I really love, but it has fatal flaws in my opinion. And if you haven't read it and you're an Aetherist, Jeff Yee, take a look at it. He's a brand new guy, super neat guy, working with a guy in China who's a professor or engineer. Very good model, folks. And so I'm not here to say abandon Aether or that other models, but I'm saying we must stop using the phrase Aether was abandoned. Because what that means is we got off track, so Aether's the answer. Now, if you're an Aetherist, of course, that's great. And it's sort of like having an advantage that you have secretly, and there's lots of people around you, and you sort of say, yeah, Aether was abandoned. Remember? You hear it, you see it written, you see it written, you see it written. We must show these conclusions. We must show outsiders that we understand the scientific space we are in. And we are not in this room 100% people who believe Aether could be correct. I have fatal flaws for Aether that I don't see being solved. I jumped from it to a better model, in my opinion. Is it the right model? I don't know. But when you go up to say, and we put all these things, yes, and you see it written all over the place, yeah? Oh, well, one of the reasons Aether, we should look at it again, because it was abandoned. But what people see that, when you look at it historically, a person who comes to this group as a critical thinker, they're just all, if I came to this group today, I'll be honest to God, there are two things that I would think. Number one, Aether is what this group believes is to be true. Second, I would feel a social and emotional pressure to join that. I feel it. I feel it. I literally think about it every day. Or maybe I'm wrong. Look at everybody else. Seriously, I'm a human being. The problem with that is that we then become exactly like the mainstream. In my opinion, and that's what this talk was also said, and this is my opinion, we've had 400 years to solve that. We have Glenn Borchardt, one of the great minds, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's smarter than anybody else in this room. This room is full of people that are super smart. But if Glenn Borchardt has been spending decades in trying to solve transverse wave still, trying to solve gravity, maybe we should all look at everybody's theories. Maybe what we should do is have a Grand Prix of all the theories, and whose objective is maybe not to win, but to learn about everybody else's theories. On my channel, my YouTube channel, I came to a great realization, because I went to the Electric Universe, who's just been around 10 years. If you're 10 years and you put videos out, great production, interesting topics, in 10 years you're gonna have 100,000 subscribers. It's just the way it is. Probably faster today. I'm thinking, what do I do? That's a huge group of people. And I'm sitting there. I'm not an Electric Universe kind of person. I'm not. It's okay. But what is it? What do I need? I want to go to their conference now, to go there and praise them. I praise them all the time. You know why? They've got 100,000 people subscribed who are going against mainstream, who are trying to be critical thinkers, whether you believe what they say or not. whether you believe that Venus came flying in 30,000 years ago or not. I'm going to, in this world where we can hardly get this many people on a worldwide basis together, and we're going to sit there and worry about whether this ether has this or that or the particle. Guys, we got to support each other. We have to understand that we're going to have people that are going to think differently from us. So if not, like I said right here in the third, we are no different from mainstream, which refuses to seriously look at other people's work. I always told this when we're back here in Connecticut, and there was one guy here before that was actually knew John Chappelle in 1986. He was a larger man in the back here. 1986 is when he joined up with them. When I was with these people, I was trying to do a lot of the things I'm doing now, which is, hey, let's listen to each other, let's work with each other. And I said something back then, probably about 10 years ago, it was one of my mantras. I said, you know, people like me, I'm going to look at everything out there, and I'm going to see your idea. It's a good idea, but it's got a lot of problems. I'm going to fix them, come up with my own stuff, and maybe pass you, because you're looking at it like this. And it was really strange because 10 years later, I told Glenn Borchardt, I think, you know, I told my dad this. When I read his Infinity and Neo-Mechanics, I've had only three times in my life I've been absolutely blown away, and that was one of them. And I told Glenn Borchardt, I said, you know, someday somebody's going to come along in the neo-mechanic world and come up with a model. It's going to be amazing. And I'm not saying my model or my father's model is amazing, but here I am standing because what I did is my dad came up with an observation, and I had collected all these great ideas from everybody here. And we came up with an amazing model. We can't break it. Doesn't mean it's right. We can't explain everything. We don't know if it's real. But the reason we have these, and the reason I look at Aether and I look at everybody's stuff, is because we don't know if we're right. We are in a time right now, in my opinion, we are in the paradigm shift. When you get to a paradigm shift, we are in it. That's why we are here. We are all, I don't think there's anybody here, I can absolutely say, everybody stay seated who believes mainstream physics and cosmology are irreparable, almost practically irreparable. And I don't think anybody here is going to disagree with that. But when you go from that point to finally coming up with what may be a consensus of the way the universe really works, guess what? You got to try them all. It's just like with, why do they teach brainstorming? When I was in the 70s and 80s, they taught brainstorming. It was a new thing. Well, they found out that when they took the craziest idea and they threw it out, the guy next to them 3 months later took that crazy idea and beat him. So when you guys use Aether was abandoned, you have to understand, and you're Aetherists, please understand that we have not all accepted it, that it may not even be the best model out there. I'm not saying mine is, or my dad's, could be another one. But we gotta be really careful. Do not say Aether was abandoned. What do we need to say? We must say the last phrase, physical models for light were abandoned. If you want to say something, that's the truth. They just started using mathematics. So I think about Aether quite a lot. I've tried to combine them, look at what's there, but I'm not here. Like I said, I admire a lot of these Aether models and theories and the way they work. I would just ask us to make sure if a person walks in, we do not give the impression that this is solved and done. Because I feel from this group, because I've been in this group since '96, I'm feeling sort of almost a dangerous move that it's starting to go in a direction that could absolutely be wrong. And I know that's shocking for you to hear from me, but could it be right? Yeah. But why did I jump from it? I can't take 400 years of not answering simple questions that Borchardt, who's one of my idols, is still trying to solve in June of this year. We talk about all of the details. I'm going to use, this is Bruce's words. He was talking about the angels dancing on the head of the pin, the time where they thought that's what gravity and the forces of the universe were. And he was saying, everybody was talking about the size and the shape of the wings, and they were getting into the details, and they were fighting it out. How many people today here are working on the angels dancing on the head of a pin theory for physics? It's not a lesson that this is wrong. It's a lesson in for us to pull back and be careful to not only close the door, not only get us stuck in maybe a dead end, but close the door to other possibilities. Thank you very much. David Hills, thank you. I will start the clap. So I don't know if we want any questions. If you do, you can make the comments, that's great. I want to keep it a little bit to the minimum because we've got a lot to do today. So maybe if anybody has a couple of comments or questions, go ahead.
There's some comments on the live feed from Pal. He says, I would like to see a consensus on definition, attributes, and properties of ether. Perhaps Cameron has one.
But my question, okay, maybe we can take that offline. I don't think that's a good question, but I'm not sure it's super pertinent what we're doing, what I was talking about today.
Not a short answer either.
Yeah, and not even, yeah. Go ahead. Pass him. We want the people online to hear, and those of you close to a microphone that need to turn it on, I appreciate you guys turning it on ahead of time and getting ready there. Okay, you got it?
Let me clarify. I come not as a scientist. I come as somebody who's been reading 20, 30 different books on quantum physics that are published from journalists to scientists. And not one of those, from 1930 to 2017, mentioned ether. It is just absolutely a non-entity. So when you tell me that mainstream is all tied up with ether, I'm wondering, what is mainstream from your perspective as opposed to mine, where I'm reading all of these known authors, and what's boggled my mind is they ignore ether completely. They don't talk about it. You get the two-slit experiment. What's going through the other slit? Something's going through the other slit, means there has to be some medium that is taking something through the other slit that's affecting the particle. What is that? The other question I have is, you talk as if ether is not a particle. Well, what is it if you're not calling it a particle?
Okay, the two questions. Number one is a historical fact of where the phrase ether was abandoned. It's not today. Second, and then the same point in your own question, you were showing a sort of bias. He says, well, what else could it be in the split? It's got to be ether. Well, no, we have a better, in fact, we think a better explanation for it. And the second part, you were saying, oh, ether is a particle. No, ether is the idea of a medium and waves through that medium through collision. Okay, that's what ether is. Ether is not a wave of stuff. Ether is, am I incorrect with that? That ether is like in water or air, the wave is transmitted by collisions of the particles, correct? That's the difference. Our particle model doesn't do that, okay? There's a clear distinction there. And we can, if you want offline, we can talk about that. That's no problem. But in your answer, that's exactly what I'm talking about. When you, who are newer to the group and you've been reading about it, you immediately say, look, they don't even look at ether. Hey, hi, I'm Dave D. Hilster. We've got a particle model, and it's not an ether, and it does well too. Why didn't you say they abandoned particle model? What I'm saying is we have to say the phrase differently. We are the mainstream. All your observations are very correct, and the double slit experiment is made quantum mechanics into an absolute joke. I agree with you that. But the thing is when we talk about physics, when someone is totally new to this whole thing, they're not like you who read a lot about it. I just say, it's real simple. They don't know what light is physically. They don't know what gravity is physically. They don't know what any of this stuff. They don't go to look at a picture of quarks. You know what quarks are? Physically, it's a circle with 3 other circles in it. That is their physical, and they call it a model. So what I'm telling everybody here is let's stop biasing our statements that mainstream is off because they don't embrace ether, because they don't embrace a physical model, and that could be, it's still up for grabs. Can you get close to the microphone?
The mainstream does use an ether, but they don't call it ether. They call it the universal wave function, and it does the same function as an ether. And so it's just that they don't have an ether made of particles. It's more like a field or something like that.
A quantum foam, right? Or where virtual particles come into existence and not. No, I agree with you. I mean, if you listen to just the mainstream, they call it space-time. The rubber sheet of space-time. The fabric of space-time, I've seen them all. The fabric of time, the fabric of space. They don't know what it is. And that's what I talk about. But I don't go to people and say they've abandoned ether. Because what I'm doing is I'm telling that person they've got to accept that model when we don't have that. If 100 years from now, if 50 years from now, we have some proof of that and that model's just working great and all the fatal flaws that have not been solved for 400 years somehow get solved, then no problem. But I'm saying as a group, we gotta be not disingenuous to that. Even in your statement. Next time someone says that, you say, well, I particularly think it's ether. That's when I say things. I said, I have my model. When I'm on my YouTube channel, I go, this is just my perspective. I am working on the particle model. Etherists will say, and I'll say it. I'll say how it works. You know, you got the lattice theory as well. And I think if we carry that around, there's 2 things going to happen. We're not going to end up necessarily in that ether ditch. And if that's a wrong way, we've got an entire organization in that corner. But it also, if the other models aren't right and ether is, they're still going to bring things that other people have never thought of. I mean, Duncan Shaw was stealing my dad's stuff last conference. In a good way. Remember the stuff about color? The color, and you said that could be done with ether. That you have the color that comes from the atomic movement, right? And he said, that works in ether. Yeah, it does. I mean, Bill Lucas, one of the persons going to be honored for his lifetime work. You know what he says? He comes here, you know why? Because he gets a lot of great data, right, Bill?
Yeah. That's right.
And he works on his. I work on mine. You work on yours. But we have to be careful with language. Every time you guys, when you talk, next time you talk about it, maybe you should change that to, hey, the double slit, they're giving up that, there's some physical model there. Maybe it's ether, maybe it's the particle model, maybe it's the lattice model. And I actually have this thing, and I'm not sure it's true. I looked at my father and I, we're more mechanically involved. We feel the universe more mechanically. And the particle model is really mechanical. Maybe each of these models, you have a bent for that. The people in the electric universe have a bent for that. There's some part of their psyche that's there. So my objective with this talk is for us to be careful not to make this an ether group. Okay? Let's make it an ether group when if we all agree, then it's an ether group. We need okay, one more comment and we're going to get going.
Well, the only comment I want to make is that above everything, it seems that this group, like John Chappell, is above everything else tolerant enough to listen to different opinions. And even if 99% of this group did believe in, so to speak, an ether, I hope that everybody in this group would be glad to welcome and listen to persons who don't, and even glad to listen to very pro-Einstein theory people, even though most of us have some criticisms or concerns about his theories too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's very true, and I'm here being able to stand up here and say these things. What I'm just saying is, in that spirit of things, Carl, I think we need to be careful not to label that group yet. If it turns out to be that way, then my father and I will work on our own. And I think what you're saying is we don't want that, right? We want people to hear all to work on their theories, no matter how crazy it seems to us or improbable. So I agree, and that's why I will say something. One of the things I'm going to be pushing in our new website, think about it, this is the best scientific group on the planet. Think about it. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.